our super compare. Njideka is one of the best in the industry, and she's setting South Africa on fire right now. One of the most sought after events compare, and that's in South Africa. I'm super proud of her. I mean, I see her stuff on LinkedIn almost every time, and I'm so proud of what she's doing. Okay, so we're going to delve into what we have to do today. I'm going to bring in the guest speaker, but before then, a few announcements. We have a bit of good news happening. We talked about putting ourselves in zones. And so if you don't belong to any zone, then maybe you're not a member of House of Saviors. We have Southern Nigeria, we have Northern Nigeria, we have Europe and UK, we have North America, and we have South Africa and other African countries. Okay. UK people have been, they've been doing some stuff, amazing stuff. They've been having meetings. Other zones will begin to have their meetings, and they had a meeting yesterday, on Friday, on investing together, and they are putting together an investment opportunity together, where they're going to be doing real estate investment every quarter. There's this particular amount they want to be putting together by themselves. They are going to own it. But they want to build it to like a 5 million pound stuff within 5 years. I'm excited. At least they have a clear direction and what they're doing, and that's very good. Now, the other news is, if you have missed any part of our sessions, you can go on our YouTube page and watch, but also our new website is up. So if you just go on the website, and just click our tribe, you will see House of Saviors, and you will see some of the most brilliant sessions we have had. So if you go to praiseforwordtech.com and just go to our tribe, you will see House of Saviors, then you can get on the videos and just refresh your mind, invite people to watch. Going forward, at some point, for people to be members, there are specific levels they need to go through, because one of the things we're trying to avoid is people just join midway and they begin to give problems because they don't know what we've been through. You can attest to the kind of meal that has been served since we started, and where you are, your thinking, and what we expect. Those are standards we won't compromise. Okay, so today we are having a big discussion. And why this discussion is so critical is very simple. There is the concept of the seed and the environment. Many of us, we are cocoa or cocoa. They said that's the way they pronounce it, cocoa. But that's Nigerians, cocoa seed. But you are planted on clay soil. That's where you're planted. That's where you're planted. You know that if you now had prayer to your seed in the clay soil, right, you are not going to produce anything. If you produce, it's going to be stunted. That in real estate, they said there are three things: location. That your potential is location sensitive. My greatest potential is intellectual property. I lived in Nigeria for a long time. I struggled with my thoughts. Everywhere I shared it, you see that people are struggling with me. They are saying that I'm saying that demons don't exist. They are, it was a whole lot of wahala, right? Then I carried myself, I moved myself out, and it's been seamless, right? My intellectual property finds expression seamlessly in another location, right? I have not had to argue. I have not had to even fight or shout or get into some discussions that is not necessary. Why? Because I found the right environment. Now, I'm not saying pack your bag and leave your country. However, saying that many a time, many of us don't move because we are afraid and because of some of the things we've been taught. Many years ago, I always will quote what the person who was my pastor then would say. I will quote him, if it's not from abroad, it's from abroad. I will quote that, but I didn't know what I was quoting. I even believed that I don't need to get a passport. I will convince myself that if Oyibo people need me, they will get passport for me. They will get me visa and come and carry me from Nigeria. That was what I was saying. As long as I said that, I did not visit any country. The day I humbled myself and I saw my foolishness and I went to get my passport, the next thing I did was to now begin to find out, how do people travel? So I went to apply to the UK, and UK looked at my balance and they told me, you are not eligible. They bounced me. That was the clear. I mean, I fasted, I prayed, I committed the act of the immigration officer into God's hand. I bind every spirit that will stop my visa from coming. I was still bound, right? Then I began to understand that some things don't answer to prayers. You need evidence. So I decided to build my account. So I built my account, went again to UK to apply. Then they told me I don't have strong ties to Nigeria, that I'm not likely going to come back. They bounced me again. But then my immigration expert said, travel to Dubai with your family, come back. So I traveled to Dubai, came back. I went again, then my visa was approved, right? And since then, I've never really had any issue with denials and refusals and all. Now, a lot of people don't know how. We have a lot of mental block. I belong to a lot of groups that every time you talk about relocation, they will tell you the new thing that will come up is, if God has not planted you there, if you go, you'll be disgraced. And that was a limiting belief for a long time, only for us to find out that the people making those statements have taken roots in other countries. And we didn't know, so the person I brought today is a big brother to me. It's my Egon. It's one of the people that has been instrumental to my, excuse me, what's going on? Admin, what's going on? I'm seeing someone on my screen. Cynthia, what's going on? Is anybody adjusting the place? Let's work on this. Okay, it's one of my big brothers. I respect him. I love him so much. Is someone who has been very instrumental to, my family moved 3 years ago. And a few days ago, we celebrated 3 years in Canada. I work in the US. Every time I run into trouble, I go to him and he will graciously give counsel and what we need to do. I want you to make welcome. I'll just read a bit of his profile. He's schooled in Nigeria, Christ School at Ado-Ekiti. I went to University of Ado-Ekiti and University of Ilorin. Then in 2007, he worked in a number of places. In 2007, he became the regional safety advisor, trainer for the card rental store in Grand Prairie, then rental arm of card covering the whole of northern part of British Columbia and Alberta provinces. In 2008, he worked in the same company, managing the safety and training for the whole of British Columbia. And then veered into immigration, getting his diploma in Canadian Immigration Consultancy at Ashton College in Vancouver, Canada. He's the CEO of Plumville International, specializing in immigration and study abroad. They're based in Nigeria and Canada. He's a National Construction Safety Officer in Canada, certified health and safety consultant, lead author, ISO 14001 lead author, and as advanced trainings. He's lived in one of the few people who I know has deep roots in Nigeria, South Africa. He lived in South Africa. I think he's even a citizen of South Africa, if I'm not making a mistake, and also a citizen of Canada. So he's everywhere. Now, I want you to welcome my brother and House of Saviors. Welcome, Mr. Wole Akinseloyin. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Uncle Wole, how are you doing today?
Oh, fine, thank you. And I really, really appreciate that introduction. And let me just put it this way. I appreciate what you are doing here. And it's actually an amazing thing.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to just dive deep into this thing. There are so many misconceptions about immigration that a lot of our people, maybe because of our religious background, we always believe, God has to tell you move. If you appear before your time, you disappear before your time, and funny things, and I believe that we are all immigrants because we move from our village to Lagos. It's immigration. We move from Lagos to Abuja. It's immigration, But when it comes to cross-bordering, then people begin to say all kinds of things. What exactly does it mean? What does immigration mean exactly? And at this point in time, people talk about Japa. Is there anything wrong with this movement, or what do you think, sir, as a professional?
Let me put it this way. There is absolutely nothing wrong when it comes to immigration. But I also understand that immigration is not for everybody. I'm not talking in terms of, how do I put it right now? This religious thing that, the way you put it earlier on. If you look at, I'll give you an example. I studied microbiology from University of Ilorin. And I moved to South Africa in the mid-90s, sort of. I worked with the Boson and Partners before they changed to AMPATH. They are still there in South Africa. When I worked with AMPATH, many of the equipment that I work with, I've never seen them before. Wow. Even though I attended a federal university and I served in National Institute for Medical Research, YABA, that is our flagship medical research institute. But many of these things, I had no clue, no idea about what they are. I was taken through all these things like I've never been to school.
Wow.
You find out that actually immigration enhances a lot of things. It broadens your horizon. There are things that you take for granted based on what we've been told as we're growing up. And always remember, we are a product of our environment and the way we have developed ourselves. And so when you have been to several places, you find out that you have a broader sense of things than anything. And it makes life, for me, to be honest, it makes life better. After all, I'm mostly in Nigeria today, but I can get up and travel anywhere in the world without thinking I need to go and get a visa, even though I'm back in Nigeria most of the times.
Wow. Wow. That's quite profound. That's profound for me. And because I remember that during COVID, you know, I needed to travel, but I couldn't travel. Then I noticed that Canada began to send for their citizens to evacuate them from Nigeria. America evacuated their, and when they were evacuating Canadians and Americans, I saw some Nigerians that I know being evacuated with them, but I couldn't go, you know. So then it dawned on me that my green passport can be very limiting. Now, I am going to, before I get into the nitty-gritty of immigration, you know, what do you have to say about the green passport? How limiting can it be? How bad or how good are things right now? What exactly is happening? Because I know, I mean, you're passionate about that and you talk about it. I see you post data consistently about our economy, about things, state of things. What exactly is going on at the moment, sir?
Green passport is very, very limiting. I'll give you an example. Many years ago, a friend of mine, he's also in Canada right now. As at that time, I already had my South African passport. He was still a Nigerian. And we went to Brazilian embassy. We wanted to travel to Brazil. And they told me, because you have a South African passport, you don't need a visa. And they told the other guy, we cannot even approve your visa in South Africa. It has to be sent to Brazil. We can only go to 44 countries without visa, thereabout, around that. It's one of the worst figures in the world. Sometimes last week or 2 weeks ago, Turkey just removed us from, I think it's Turkey, from their visa. Now, I will also give you an example. If you are in Canada and you have a permanent residence of Canada, US will give you 10 years visitor's visa.
Wow.
But here in Nigeria, even if you are Dangote, you will get 2 years visitor's visa. I was talking to somebody just before we went on now. I think to get a date for US visa, probably 2024. So assuming you have something you need to do, You know, I have a partner that you know very well. We were to go to Italy 2 years ago. It took us a while for us to get his own visa, but I didn't need any visa because with my Canadian passport, I just need to buy my ticket and I was in Italy. So there are really a lot of advantages, and whether people like it or not, a lot of Nigerians, and I'm in the field, a lot of Nigerians are trying to get a second passport, even the rich ones.
Wow. This is something that people don't tell us. We follow the wrong people and our leaders hide from us. They tell us stay in Nigeria, but many of them now we know are finding expressions abroad, looking for second passport, and even the excluded. So now I want us to get into the nitty-gritty of these things. I mean, you are a Canadian immigration expert, and Canada seems to be the hub that a lot of Nigerians want to go to right now. What is so special about Canada? Let me start from there before. And I know there are various ways that people can travel to Canada. Some people don't even know what is available, what's possible. Some people are saying that, Canada is too cold. If you go to that place, cold will kill you. There's no job, it's lonely, all kinds of misconceptions. Do you want to tell us why is Canada a bit special? And why I know from living in both countries, America and Canada, that is one of the best places to raise children. I know that, but what is so special? Why is Canada the southern destination hub for a lot of Africans in Nigeria?
Obviously, I may be biased when it comes to Canada. I have to be honest with that. Now, when you look at Canada, number one, they need people. I think 2019, 81% of our population growth was by immigration. That's huge. That means they generally don't have children. And because we have universal healthcare system, people get old. As at 2019, we had about 10,700 centenarians. And remember, Canada is just 38 million people.
Wow.
So a lot of the baby boomers are leaving the workforce and they need to replace them, and they simply don't have enough. Last week, all the premiers, they met and they were putting pressure on the federal government on the need to increase the immigration figures. Right, I think this year is going to be 411,000. Now, number one, Canada promotes multiculturalism.
Yes.
There is no country in the world that is perfect. But in Canada, as much as it is not perfect, if you are a Black person, you are not limited by your skin.
Yeah.
Kelechi Madu got to Canada in 2005. He is a minister in Alberta provincial government today. So it's even entrenched in the constitution, multiculturalism. It's a country that embraces all different cultures. I'll give you an example. The former minister of immigration is from, I think, Somalia. He's now another minister, they've shuffled it, but he was a minister of immigration. The former minister of defense is an Indian. He was not born in Canada. He relocated to Canada just like I relocated. He was the former Governor General of Canada, Jean, is a Black woman. She was brought from Haiti and became the Governor General. There was a lady, Monsef. He was brought in from Afghanistan as a refugee. She became a minister, federal minister. And I can go on and on and on. That is the opportunities that the nation gives even to minorities. That's number one. Number two, one of my major thing I like about Canada is the universal healthcare system. One of the number one cause of bankruptcy in the US is healthcare system.
Mhm.
Whereas in Canada, you go to the hospital, you get out and you pay nothing. Now, it doesn't mean it doesn't have its own limitations, because in certain instances, you have to wait if it's not life-threatening. But at least we understand that if anything, for example, last year I took my wife for surgery. We went in, we went out, we paid zero, not a dime. Then you know that you can raise children, primary school, secondary school, basically free. And the university, you pay local fees, and there are all forms of ways to even pay for that. The children can actually get student loan. There are ways, all those things can be sorted out. And by 19, most children are out of their family. They start their own lives, basically at 19. Maternity leave in Canada is basically 1 year. 15 weeks maternity leave, 35 weeks parental leave. And this, the Trudeau government even extended it to 18 months. The only difference is if you are taking 12 months, you earn the same thing as you take 18 months. But at least you can go for a whole year, and the father can still have 6 weeks, I guess, yeah, 6 weeks paternity leave. Then, for example, something they just did now, you have a child, your child goes to daycare, no Canadian will pay more than $10 per day for daycare. Government is subsidizing everything. In Ontario, it used to be, I think, about $2,600 per month, or $1,600, I can't remember. But now you can be sure that you're not going to pay more than up to $300 a month. And remember, in most provinces, minimum wage is $15. So it means you can earn, even if you are the drag of the society, say for example in Alberta, and you get $15 minimum wage, it means an hour wage covers your day for a full day daycare. You look at in places in Alberta, in British Columbia, they have stress leave. You are stressed and you cannot work. I know it's funny to some people, but let's be honest, if you are very stressed, you can be productive. And then maybe, let me just, lastly, you lose your job, you still have employment insurance that can take care of you, I think about 45 weeks. But to be honest, there is no way you are going to stay at home without getting a job for that long. And right now, unemployment rate is 4.9%. That is the lowest on record, the lowest they have ever seen on record. So wow. There are so many reasons why, and like I said, again, what we call the fertility rate. Canada's fertility rate is about 1.4, 1.6. And for any country to replace itself, the population replacement rate is about 2.2%. So if Canada does not bring in immigrants, they will go into extinct. It's the second largest country in the world after Russia. We have 6 time zones, and it's just 38 million. British Columbia is bigger than Nigeria, and it's just 5.5 million. So those are the basic reasons. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. I mean, this is so instructive for me. I'm even hearing new things. I mean, I learned the Canadian national anthem, so I sing it all the time because I love it. I think it's one of the, most carefully constructed national anthem. I mean, I'm hearing some things for the first time. Okay, so it's making me think now, do I even leave America and go back to Canada? But now, what are the various options? I know that a lot of people always think that it's tough, to go to Canada, to relocate to Canada. But I mean, as a consultant, I know that there are various areas and ways. So I'm going to put 2 questions into one. How late is it to move to a place like Canada? How old must you be when you can now say, it's too late to move. Because, I mean, the scary thing about it in Nigeria, for example, is that the people who are even in their 60s now want to move, right? And that's very scary because it's almost as if we're in a war situation. So how late, how old must I be when I say, it's too late to go to Canada? And the other thing is, what are the various options available for people that want to move to Canada?
There are various options, like, I think right now the easiest way is basically through studies. Canada has a path for students. You go to school in Canada, post-secondary institution. Once you finish, you get 1 year, 2 years, 3 years work permit. Let me explain that. You get a work permit based on the number of years you spend in school. So to the maximum of 3 years. So if you spend 1 year in school, then you get 1 year work permit. If you get 2 or 3 years, if you spend 2 years, you are supposed to get 2 years. But honestly, they still give 3 years. If you spend 3 years, you get 3 years. If you spend 4 years, you still get 3 years, maximum of 3 years. Now, you are expected to work for 1 year for the federal government. In some provinces, you just need 6 months. And I'm going to explain that before you apply. And in New Brunswick, which is the only province where you can even apply as a student, if you're in their post-secondary institution, you can even apply as a student without finishing, even before you finish. And after that, you can apply for citizenship. Canada even gives you credit for the time spent during your temporary residence to a maximum of 1 year. Basically, this is what they do. You spend 2 years before you become permanent residents, that will count for 1 year. Every 2 days is regarded as 1 day, to a maximum of 1 year. Even if you spend 10 years, you only get 1 year. If you spend 2 years, you only get 1 year credit. And if you spend 1 year, that means 6 months credit. So when you become permanent resident, you only need 2 years to be eligible for to be a citizen, to apply for citizenship. So that is a very straightforward path. And they call it Canadian experience. Basically, they believe that if you are schooled there, remember when you school in Canada, automatically you can work 20 hours when the school is in session, and you can work full-time when the school is out of session. So they believe, number one, you are already in the system, you have worked, you are schooled, and you can easily integrate. They are the first people, they actually, they have very good option. They love to actually take it. Now, in that, most times when it comes to express entry, there's another one they call express entry. It started in 2015. Before 2015, permanent residents can take years, 5 years, 6 years, they are still processing, and they felt that is not good enough. So in 2015, they came out with express entry. And with express entry, it's a point-based system. And that is where some people have a lot of issues. Number one, age. They want between 20 and 29. That's the best. Then as you hit 30 and above, you begin to lose points until you are 44 and it's 0, it's 5 points. Then 45 is 0. So after 44, express entry for the federal government, I'm very particular about that now, becomes difficult. In fact, even around 38, your age will have brought down your points such that it will be difficult to actually qualify for the express entry of the federal government. Number two, apart from age, they look at education. If you have just 1 degree, honestly, it is difficult with federal government express entry, except you have 2 degrees or masters. And when I say 2 degrees, it doesn't necessarily have to be masters. Some people had OND before they went for their degree. They are lucky because they will have higher points. Some people did postgraduate diploma, but OND and HND is regarded as one because one of the two degrees must be at least 3 years minimum. So they look at work experience. Anything 3 years and above, you are good. 1 year or 2 years will reduce your points. Then they look at language proficiency, which people go and write the IELTS. And there is no exception. Even if you are from England, you have to write the IELTS. And if you are going to Quebec, then you have to write the French version, even if you are from France. And that is key. If you cannot get at least maybe 777 and like 8 or 8.5 in listening, you are going to struggle. And 0.5 can make a huge difference. About 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I had a client. He had the highest points in all the three, but in writing, he had 6.5. And it brought her points to about, I think, 402. And 7 in writing will give her about 450 something. Now, they do some other things, and they do draws every month. They just started again now. They stopped during the COVID. There is no pass or fail point on the draw in the draws. This draw, they might, okay, the last one, let me put the last one. I think it's 450. No, 451 or 471, I can't remember. They picked 1,500 people. If you do not meet that bar for that day, then you will still be in the pool. You can only be in the pool for 1 year. If they don't pick you, they will bump you out. So they will do another draw, sometimes 2 draws in a month, sometimes 1, until they bring the point lower than what you have. For example, from 2015 to 2015 and 2016, the minimum was 450. In 2017, they came very low to 413. Then over the years, it has been very high, maybe 448, 450. Then during the COVID, because they were desperate and needed people, they brought it to, I think, 72 from 400 and something, to give room for people who don't even have education, but they're already in Canada, they are doing some work and all those kind of things. So they took a lot of people during the COVID that are already in Canada. And they're actually trying to create another path now from temporary residents to permanent residents. Now, apart from the federal government express entry, we have 10 provinces and 3 territories. All of them, except Nunavut, have programs, immigration programs. Immigration is run by both the federal government and the provinces in Canada. However, the federal government has an overriding power. So every province will tailor their own immigration to meet what they need within their provinces. And their requirements are much lower than the federal government. For example, in Manitoba, if you have a family in Manitoba, they can sponsor you. If you have a friend in Manitoba, it will add some points to your points. And if the province gives you appointment, then it means they will add 600 points to your point, and you automatically qualify for the federal government. Once, because let's assume you have 300 points or whatever, you add 600 to it, that's about 900. If you get 400, you add 600 to it, that's about 1,000. You will automatically qualify. And then you have Alberta, for example. If you have a sibling in Alberta, it helps. If you have a job offer in Alberta, without necessarily being the job that you need labor market impact assessment, it helps. And what do I mean by that? Before you can work in Canada, the company has to advertise, I think, for 30 days. The company has to go to Department of Labor. They need to get what we call labor market impact assessment, that they cannot find a Canadian or a permanent resident who can do the job. And that is why they are going out of the country to hire a foreign worker. But with the Alberta one, you do not actually need all of that. You just need a letter of employment from an employer, and then you have a sibling in Alberta, then you have chances. So each of those, they have their immigration, they also have business entrepreneurial. If you are rich, depending on what you have, where you are going, there are also programs. And then apart from that, family sponsorship. One of the objectives of Canadian immigration is to reunite families in Canada. So if you have a spouse that is studying, working in Canada, you are eligible for spousal open work permit. And that helps you to go and join your spouse. Then if you have a permanent residence or you are a citizen, then you can file for permanent residence for your spouse outside. That's another area of immigration. Then there is Atlantic Immigration Program. Now, we have 4 provinces in the Atlantic: Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Islands, Newfoundland, and New Brunswick. I want to be very careful what I say here on that. They are probably the poorest, maybe that's not the best word, in Canada. Their economy is not as buoyant as the rest of the country. And so they struggle to keep immigrants within their province. And remember, in the Charter of Rights and Freedom in Canada, every permanent resident or citizen can live anywhere. So these people struggle, they bring immigrants to their provinces, and within a few period of time, they leave. And so they created the Atlantic program, where you get a job and you don't need labor market impact assessment for that job. Your English, whatever, is not as high as the express entry. And the money you even need to relocate is also lower. So the threshold is much, much lower to attract more people. People are basically rushing there. Then apart from that, you have the caregiver. Now, when I say caregiver, they basically actually stopped the caregiver in 2019. But there are 2 programs that they brought up: Home Child Care Provider Pilot and Home Support Worker Pilot. Now, these 2 programs are basically more or less like caregiver. One is for children. You need to, in fact, it's probably the easiest, provided you have an employer. You need somebody in Canada who has children under 18 to hire you to take care of their children, and you need to have an employment contract like every other employee. There is a standard contract. Then startup visa. If you are highly innovative and you are very creative, Canada wants you. It's very simple. You have a program, you have a project you are working on, and you think, for example, there is a guy that went to one of the, is it Norway or Finland? I can't remember. Did something, a drone in Nigeria, but Nigerian government didn't care about him. And one of the Scandinavian countries came and they took him away. Things like that, Canada wants it. What you need to do is they are even ready to help you. They have angel investors and they have some companies that will sponsor your project. What you need to do is, first and foremost, if you can get in touch with those companies, they have their list. The specific ones you can, one will offer minimum of maybe up to 200,000, 175,000. And once they give you a note that they are on board with your program, Canada will give you permanent residence. They want special people. I mean, that's the way countries grow today, not because of natural resources they have, but the human resources and how innovative those resources, human resources are. So this startup is a very good one. Then you have the self-employed. The self-employed is basically for sports people and for cultural people, not generally who I want to. Although there are some provinces that might have that one. And then you have the religious visa. Religious visa too is very easy. If you're a pastor, you have a church in Canada who is ready to file for you. It's pretty easy, and then you can get permanent residence. And it's even one of the occupations where you can work in Canada without a work permit. You can work as a pastor in Canada without a work permit. Those are basically the various areas that you can use to relocate to Canada. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, if someone is already in the US or someone is already in the UK and wants to move to Canada, is it the same process, all these options?
It's the same process, but obviously the visa officer might not look at it the same way, but it's the same process. It doesn't matter where you are. The only thing, maybe if you are accepted, let me put it this way, if you are a citizen of those countries and you want to relocate, it might be easier because you don't need a visitor's visa. Even if you have a green card in US, you don't need a visa to visit Canada. So it might just be easier to move in there and do whatever you need to do because you can change your status in Canada seamlessly.
Thank you very much. Someone is asking, we have two questions. Sorry, if you have your questions, you can post them in the chat box and I'll read them out. Someone is saying that, what is the post-retirement options in Canada? What post-retirement options do we have in Canada? And another one is asking, how can we calculate our living expenses for a student or family expenses per province?
Okay, generally the federal government has done that. Living expenses, I'll answer the second one first. What they have done is that an average person in Canada as a student will spend $10,000 per annum living expenses. So even when you are applying for your study visa, they expect you to have your tuition and minimum $10,000, which is the living expenses. Now, if you are going with somebody else, maybe your spouse or something, then you are expected to have $14,000. That's an additional $4,000. Then if there is a third person, that attracts $3,000. So one person is $10,000, two people is $14,000, three people is $17,000. Then every additional one is just $33,000. So four will be $20,000. Now, the other one, the post-retirement, that is a bit tough. And the reason is not far-fetched. When I was talking, you realize that Canada is a bit different from US. Canada is more of a welfare country than a terrible capitalist country, which means government does a lot of things. And the way they probably see it is, in your days when you were strong, you have served another country, you have given your all to another country, and now that you need spare parts, basically, as an old man. And that's why one of the things that they can deny you Canadian permanent residents is health. If you have health challenges, you have to do medicals, and they have to check that they are certain you are not going to put pressure on Canadian medical system. I have a client right now. We applied for him for study visa. He did not tell us he had any health challenges. And when they did his health, whatever, they found out that he has HIV. So there is a procedural fairness letter they will send. Can you explain how you intend to handle this in Canada and will not put pressure on the Canadian medical system, which we have done now. And I believe he will get the visa. But as a permanent resident, these are all the things they need to look at. So it's not like there is none, but that will be along the lines with the provincial nominees. I do not, right now, as I'm talking to you, I can't think of any from the federal government. Now, the good thing is with Canada, your child can file for you. You can even file for your grandparents. I honestly don't understand why they add grandparents. I can understand filing for your parents, but filing for grandparents, it doesn't make sense to me. And secondly, there is something now they call super visa. If you have your parents, in fact, they just changed the super visa last month. If you have your parents, maybe you have not filed for permanent residence for them, then you can file for super visa. It's 10 years. Super visa comes with 10 years visa, and you can stay 5 years at a stretch in Canada under super visa. And then you can renew it for another 2 years. So you can stay 7 years at a stretch, even without being a permanent resident under the super visa. But as a parent or grandparent of a permanent resident or a Canadian citizen. Post-retirement, honestly, I don't have an idea.
Okay, someone is asking, if you want to go the pastor's route, do you need to have a church there, or a church there needs to hire you? Or can you move your church? Can you go there with the intention of starting a church? That's one. Another person is saying, how easy is it to transfer as an undergraduate in Nigeria to Canada with a scholarship? That's the second question. Then someone is saying, how easy is it to move from UK to Canada as a student?
Okay. The first one is the pastor. In all my years of doing religious visa, I have never done anyone that there is no church in Canada that is hiring you. We just submitted one maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. Everyone I've done, the church in Canada has to give you an employment contract. They have to go to Department of Labor and get what we call labor market exempt. Remember, I said to get a job in Canada, you need to get labor market impact assessment from the Department of Labor. But for pastors, you do not need that, but you still need to get labor market exempt. And it's the church there that will file for all these things. And is the church there will also show that they can pay you the salary that they promise they will pay, which means their account, bank statements, their tax assessment, and all those kind of things. And then secondly, the salary they are going to pay you must be more than LICO. LICO is low income cut off salary. That is the basic you can pay for a poor person, the lowest and the dreg of the society. You cannot pay anybody less than the LICO. So they want to see all of that before we can even start anything from Nigeria or from wherever you are. So I'm not going to say that it's not possible, but I have never done that and I don't know about that. All I have done is it's initiated by a church in Canada offering that person outside employment and everything. And it's even much easier if you have a visitor's visa. To be honest, religious visa is more or less like a visitor's visa. So if you have a visitor's visa, you simply go to, you are in Canada, they give you all the documents, the church that wants to hire you, you go to the border and they give you the record. They call it visitor's record or whatever. And that's all, you are good. In May, a friend of mine that I just did his from South Africa, that's what we did. He went to visit and then got all the documents, went to the border, got his stamped, and that's it. Number two, how easy is it to transfer your credit? It's not difficult at all. We do it all the time. We partner with some schools in Canada. If we have students who want to leave from here, basically what we do is we get admission. They give admission as if you are starting from year one. That's what they do. And then we send in the transcripts, and they will review these transcripts, and they will tell us the number of credits they are giving you. So after reviewing your transcript, they might say, you have 1 year credit, or 2 years credit, or 1.5 years credit, depending. That is solely on their own discretion based on your transcript. We don't have any say in that. For example, I used to have one of my clients, he did computer science. He has even graduated. And we got an admission for him. He got to Canada, and they looked at his 4-year computer science program, and they gave him 2 years credit to go in for bachelor's in computer engineering. And he did 2 years, and he got his computer engineering degree. And it's basically, it's not a difficult thing, depending on the transcript and the school. And it's the same thing even if you are going from the UK. It's not just because it's from Nigeria. Whether it's UK, Nigeria, anywhere, they will look at a transcript where you are coming from, and they look at their own, and they give you whatever number of years. Even I have a cousin who just moved from US to Canada, and they gave her 1 year credit. So she needs only 3 years more. That's it.
Thank you very much. I have 2 extra questions here. Is there a special consideration for parents with special needs children? If I want to move to Canada, can it be an advantage in any way? That's one. Then this person is saying, my immediate elder brother just got his permanent residency, and he will be moving very soon. When can he invite me, and can I get permanent resident through him? Those are the 2 questions I have.
Okay, the special need child, that is very tricky. Section 38 of the Canadian Immigration Act talks about that. And actually, that can lead to refusal of the entire family. One person, okay, they call it inadmissibility section 34 of the Act to section 40 of the Act. Criminality, organized crime. If you remember, one of the policemen in Nigeria that they denied in Canada because he was a member of the this police force or whatever. That's under that section. Criminality, medical, financial, misrepresentation. If you lied in your application and they find out, actually that could lead to 5 years ban, misrepresentation. So section 38 talks about health, about social services and everything. The issue now is there are cases that have gone to court. Hilewis versus Canada, for example. Hilewis is a South African, a very rich man, and was moving to Canada based on the immigration that targeted rich people. Federal government has stopped that program now, investors program. And they now denied him and his entire family because one of them is a special needs child. And he went to court, up to the Supreme Court of Canada, and he won. And the government said, look, you cannot tell somebody to come to Canada by virtue of A, B, C, and D, and in his own country, he's able to take care of his child. And now you are saying he cannot come because of this. And what the government said then was, look, even if you can afford to take care of this child in Canada, the moment you are in Canada, everywhere is universal healthcare system. So it becomes the government's problem. But at the end of the day, he won. And there's another case after that that also won. So I cannot say now that yes or no. It depends on the circumstances, and it depends on the visa officer. But generally, it may actually lead to refusal of the entire family for permanent residence.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, a lot of people are asking for your details. How do they contact you? There are loads of questions that I think should be on a one-to-one basis. I mean, someone says, I have a family of 5. How can I move my family to Saskatchewan or Manitoba? We are in the process. How much do we need to start the process? And all this, you know, is there a website? Is there a detail, something we can put on the, I must say that, you know, that, I mean, it's one of the most credible travel consultants I know in Canada. So you don't have to bother about, you know, some of the issues some of you have been having, you know, and that's why we take our time, whoever we bring here. So, Uncle Wole, is there any?
Yeah, we have a website. It's Plumville Inc. I don't know, maybe I can send it to you.
Yeah, please. Plumville is what spelling? Can you spell it? I'll just put it on the chat box.
PLUMVILLEINT.com.
Okay, Plumville.
Plum. Plum as in fruit and veal.
Oh,
Plumville.
Okay.
VILLLE. I'll send it to you now.
Okay. Okay. I think I got it. Okay, I'll look for it. And once I get it, I'll put it on the website. Okay.
And you have my number. You have my number.
Yes, I'll put a number there as well. Someone is asking, hello, my daughter. Okay, the other person that asked about his brother just got permanent residency and is asking when can he invite him and can he get permanent residency through his brother. Then another person is asking, my daughter just graduated from the U of M. I don't know what that means. Has been offered
Manitoba. That's the University of Manitoba.
Okay, has been offered permanent employment where she was working as a student and has started processing her PR. When can she apply for us? Our parents, we are age 51 and 49, and only younger sister she has, which is 12 years old. She's 12 years older than.
Ready for you. Okay. Number one, the first one is a brother. Outside maybe Manitoba and Alberta, the federal government does not have siblings. For the federal government, you can't file for your sibling. That's one thing. For Alberta, it's not like you can even file for your sibling. However, if your sibling is in Alberta, and when you fill your express entry profile, and you put Alberta as to where you are going to, and then your brother is there, it's something that can aid. It's different from Manitoba, where having a brother actually adds points to your point that can help you to cross over to get the invitation to apply. So if somebody has a brother, honestly, his best bet will be if that brother lives in Manitoba. That's his best bet. If, for example, I used to live in British Columbia. British Columbia has nothing for siblings or anybody, because when people go to Canada, most times they go to Ontario or British Columbia. So they won't bend backwards to look for immigrants. Even though they still need immigrants, every province in Canada needs immigrants. But Manitoba will be his best bet if the brother is living in Manitoba. Now, the one with a child, this is how it goes. Now that your child has just finished, she will apply. She is a daughter, right?
Yes, she's a daughter.
Okay, she will apply for what we call postgraduate work permit. And that's the one I said, it can be 1 year, it can be 2 years, it can be 3 years, maximum of 3 years. Now, she's expected to work for 1 year and then apply for permanent residence. Then it depends on the province. It can only be 6 months and go through provincial nominee. She might not even wait for 1 year to go through the federal government. Even right now, she can invite you, but just as a visitor. That's all. She cannot file for you. However, once she becomes a permanent resident and she has a job, she can apply for you for permanent residence or the super visa, where you can live there for 5-7 years at a stretch.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Let me see if there's one.
I already sent the.
Yeah, I put it in the website is on the link already. You can go check it. My admin is putting it there. One more person is asking if I'm going for a 2-month course in the US. Is it possible for me to cross over to Canada from the US? That person is asking.
You will have to get a visitor's visa from the US to move to Canada. Yes, you can apply for visitor's visa in the US, but since the COVID started, the timeline for visitor's visa has been crazy. So I do not know if it's possible for you to get it before them. But let me tell you this. If you are going to the US, you can apply anywhere right now, and you can pick it up anywhere in the world. You can apply for Canadian visa in Nigeria and pick it up when you're in US if it's out. You can pick it up in Australia, you can pick it up in Jamaica, anywhere in the world, as long as you applied online. And that's probably the only one they even allow now to apply online. Because if you get there and want to apply within 2 months, I'm not sure, I don't know if it can be out within 2 months. And sometimes, let me put it this way, you can even be in the US and apply in the US and send it to their Nigerian office because you are living in Nigeria. I had a client, she was studying in the UK. I mean, she was studying, not even visiting. And we applied in the UK and they sent it back to this place.
Wow. Okay, my final questions before I release you, sir. Okay, so this person that her daughter just got a job says they were actually invited for graduation in June, but they were refused first application after they did biometrics. They were told to reapply, which they did, but there has not been response yet. Another person is asking if your fiance just got a permanent resident, how soon can she file for you?
Okay, let me start with the first person. The good thing about Canada is when Canada refuses you a visa, you can actually get your file and find out why the visa officer actually refused that visa. And it has to be intelligible. They have to put something that makes sense in that file. Now, since your daughter is there in Canada, I can help you on how she can file to get the file. Because if I do it, I'm going to collect money. And since you have a daughter there, I don't feel it's really it's worth it. She can do it. It takes about a month, takes about 30 days. I will just put her through on how to go about it. And once you get that file, I'll go through. I'll look at it and see if it's something you can reapply, or I will tell you, okay, based on what the visa officer wrote here, can you get A, B, C, and D, and let's reapply. You should be able to overcome it if you do these and these. So that is actually pretty easy. The first thing is, let's get the file. Let's know exactly what is in that file. The second one, your fiance or fiancé has a permanent resident, he or she can apply for you right away. The only thing is that person must have a job to show that they can take care of themselves and the other person coming. And there is a specific amount they need. There is a table. If that family of two, family of three, family of four, there is an amount they expected and how much that person in Canada is earning. We need to look at the person's T4 for last year. That will show how much the person earned last year. You can start right away. You don't need to wait for, because right now it takes a long time. Before, this would take less than a year, 6 months, 8 months. Now it's taking 24 months, 36 months, thereabout. Now, you can also apply for visitor's visa because Section 22(2) of the Canadian immigration law talks about dual intent. The fact that you are a potential immigrant or you have applied for immigration does not preclude you from applying for visitor's visa or temporary visa, provided you can prove that this particular one is a temporary trip and you will be back to the country. So the threshold is just higher, but you can apply for a visitor's visa, even while you have applied for permanent residence. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. Okay, so someone is asking, greetings, sir, since all the applications are online, will the refusal file be on applicant account online? That's one. Then for someone interested in childcare, is getting an employer part of the services you offer?
No, we don't get employers. Whoever wants to do that must have had his or her employers. In fact, I was discussing with somebody. Now, there are schools everywhere in Nigeria now where they're actually doing the training. I'm surprised. A lot of Filipinos in Canada actually use this path. A lot of the Filipinos, they use this path to get to Canada. Based on these schools, I'm looking right now if I can get agencies. But right now, I don't do that. But I'm looking at if I can get agencies that we can get people trained here and then send it to Canada. Sorry, what's the second one? Is since the application is online, will the refusal? Oh, okay, yeah, okay, I get that. Now it's an online application. You must be a Canadian permanent resident or you are living in Canada to file. There was a time they wanted, they came up that they're probably going to change it, that anybody can get it. It's just access the information, that's all. That's what it is. Any government parastatal. So what happens is there is a form we will fill, you will sign, giving your daughter consent. Without that consent, it is impossible. So once she fills the file, everything is done online, she pays the cost, and we wait for 30 days. It is generally, they will write it an average of 30 days. But in recent times, it may be a little bit more than 30 days, but generally most times it will be 30 days. So I always tell people maybe about 45 days, even though it might come out in 30 days.
Very much. So final question. A lot of people have the misconception, or they've been told, they are afraid, oh, why would you leave Nigeria where you have a house and go and start afresh in Canada? It's tough to start afresh, life is hard and all those kind of things. What would you have to say to allay their fears, especially given the insecurity situation in our country? What do you have to say to them, sir?
Okay, I'll use myself as an example. I was living in South Africa and I just went to visit a friend in Canada, in Alberta. And one thing that shocked me when I got to Alberta then was they couldn't find workers. All you needed was to breathe and you walk then. And I was So I looked at because Alberta is an oil-rich province, and it's different from Nigeria. Each province manages their resources, not the federal government. So, and I have done occupational health and safety before, even in Nigeria. So I went to do a lot of courses. Those courses, all these professional courses, are even almost more important than your degree. So I did a lot of these professional courses in Edmonton. Then I got my national construction safety, whatever. I registered with Canadian Safety Engineering, Society of Safety Engineering, got their whatever, and then I started looking for a job. I did not even look for a job until I've gotten all these, although the Canadian Society of Safety Engineering came later. And then I started looking for a job. Initially, it was tough because the issue is, oh, you are a visitor, I'm sorry, we can't file for you. Oh, you are a visitor, I'm sorry, we can't file for you. I was actually getting frustrated. I was planning to go back to South Africa. And then Caterpillar, they decided, they gave me a job. I didn't tell them anything. And after they have offered me the job, I went to, then I told them about the fact that I don't have, what do you call it, permit. And so they filed for my labor, whatever, and then they filed for my permanent work permit and permanent residence. They wanted to check if it was that, it was easy. Well, they felt it was very cumbersome. Basically what I'm saying, and Canada is almost at that same level now, where they have about 1 million jobs that they cannot fill. So you get to Canada, at the beginning, you're going to struggle. It doesn't mean you have to. I know somebody who relocated from Sweden and got a job of about 90,000 within few weeks. His first job was $90,000. But it can be a struggle at the beginning because the question is, do you have a Canadian work experience and blah, blah, blah. And then with all these certifications, you need 1 or 2 certifications. You don't necessarily need to go to university, but they are certifications. And once you get that, start looking. The first thing you want to do is just look for any job. You want to get that Canadian experience first. I was fortunate, I got a very good job right from the beginning, but it's not always like that. So the first thing is get that Canadian experience. As you get the Canadian experience, you can easily get another job, a better job. And one thing I always tell people, now I cannot claim to know everything about Canada. Like I said, Canada is huge, it's like a continent. You can fly 8 hours within Canada. We have 6 time zones. I'm only used to the western part of Canada, British Columbia and Alberta. That's what I know. Now, it's rare to see people doing many jobs in that area. I'm being specific in what I know. I can't claim to know everywhere in Canada. You are a graduate, you get a job as a graduate and you work as a graduate. That is common in the western part. One of my closest friends is an engineer with the city of Edmonton, one of the top whatever. Everybody around me that I know, either working in an oil company, working in a big company, it's a matter of time. You are going to get a good job. And remember, you don't buy a house cash. It is, you get a mortgage. I actually bought my house before I got my permanent residence with study visa. With work visa. I had not gotten my permanent residence when I got my mortgage. So it's a matter of time. The period with which to settle down is not such a long period for me and for people around me that I know. I do not claim to know everything and everybody. And that's why I always encourage people, you're going to be okay. It's a matter of time. You're going to be well okay. Well okay.
Thank you very much, sir. And when people say that they are going to struggle, I'll tell people you're already struggling in Nigeria. You are struggling for fuel. You go to sleep at the filling station. You are struggling to power your gen. That's struggling, and you're not going to have that problem, you know. And, when I started.
Sorry, and then the other thing. The other thing is there might be culture shock.
Yeah.
If you are a typical African, it might be tough for you initially, but adjusting. I'll give you an example. My office was 15 minutes away from my house. My wife walked downtown. I would take her to the station. The train takes about 45 minutes to get to downtown. So I have to take care of my breakfast. It's 15 minutes from the office. I get home maybe around 4 sometimes, because my job is very flexible. I get home very early. She closes by 5. I will have to pick her around 6 at the station. It will be unfair for me to now tell her to go to the kitchen and find something to eat, and I've been home since. So those kind of things, and here, you know, we are spoiled. You can have house girls, you can have drivers, you can have all those you are not likely to have. Those are things you might struggle with.
Thank you very much, sir. You know, go and learn how to start cooking. That should not be your problem. Go and learn how to be a proper person. I mean, I remember when I started living in the US, one day it was raining and I was going out, and subconsciously I started thinking, NEPA will soon take power. Let me quickly go and hire my. Then it dawned on me that, hey, boy, you live in the US and all. So, you know, I think that a lot of Africans struggle simply because there is no support system like the Indians. And those are the things we are starting to do, to say we must be able to support ourselves, that when people land, they land into a proper African community that can show them the way, and they don't have to now begin to struggle around and find their way. Yeah, and that worked for me when I came into my cousin's place, and it was very easy because it took me around, and now I do that for other people. You know, so please, everyone, Uncle Wole's number has been shared. Feel free to go meet him. However, it's not free. Pay whatever. I tell you, my immigration lawyer in Dallas is about the best that exists in there. If she has to talk to you, I'm trying to see how I can drag her here, you know, to come and answer these questions. But if you have to speak to her, it's about $160 for 30 minutes, right? And she won't even negotiate it. Even when I still have to talk to her, she'll say, Praise, go to my Calendly and fill your slots and blah, blah. So please, let's not abuse access, abuse privileges. One thing I never do with my mentors, any information that is available online, I will not ask them. So there are information, don't waste his time, and pay his fees. Trust me, it's credible and his success rate is very high. Thank you very much, Uncle Wole, for obliging us and for sharing some of this information I would have paid for with us in this place today. God bless you, sir.
Thank you very much, and have a nice day.
Yes, sir. Thanks, sir. Okay, House of Saviors, please, can you appreciate him? Go to the chat box, you know, tell him thank you. Appreciate the House of Savior way. You know, this has been mind-blowing, profound, answering some of your questions. Njideka, where are you?
I'm right
I need
here.
to hand over to you at this juncture. We will try and get someone from America and UK, you know, so that we can strike a balance, and maybe South Africa for those who want to move to South Africa. You know, Njideka is there. She's our representative in that entire region. The whole of Africa is in her hands. Okay, so Njideka, over to you.
Okay, thank you, PF. Thank you so much for even the opportunity of this platform to serve today. Thank you so much to Uncle Wale, Ntate Wale, as they say in South Africa. Thank you so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge. Thank you so, so much for being real with all the information you gave us here. I hope that we understand the extent of the information we're getting here, because a lot of people have lost millions by being in the hands of the wrong people. Thank you so, so much, because I know that with the situation in the country now, a lot of people are wondering about the possibility of living, and a lot of people do not even know where to really get the right information. It's always a lot of things to read when you go online, but look at Uncle Wale here, just telling us, like gisting us as if we are pali palis. Thank you so much, PF, that we can ride on your credibility, because if I call him now and I'll say, I'm from PF's House of Saviors, and I think he's going to stop whatever he's doing and listen to me. Thank you so much. We do not take these things for granted.